So today we will start with the module one, next topic. So we'll be starting with rules of inference. Okay, rules of inference. Okay, so far in the module one, first we have started with the truth tables. Okay, so then we have discussed a few of the laws of logic, right? So after that we have solved the problems related to logical equivalence, and then we have discussed about converse, inverse, and contrapositive, right? So now in this first chapter of the module one, okay, first part of the module one. So this is the last topic, and the importance of this topic is in every question paper, definitely you will get one question, one or sometimes he will give even two questions. Okay, so in every question paper, he will get at least one problem on rules of inference. Okay, and one more thing is either he can ask the problems directly. So when I tell directly, so he will give the just a minute. I'll just start recording. Okay, so what I was telling is either he will ask the question directly in the sense he will give the compound propositions, okay, and he will ask you whether the given set of compound propositions are valid or not. Okay, so that is the one way. The another way is what he will do is he'll just give a set of sentences. Okay, so when he gives the sentences, what you need to do is you have to convert that into the proposition form. Okay, so how to do that? I think you have some idea because we have solved the problems related to converse, inverse, and contrapositive, right? So there, whatever the sentence he gives, what we will do, so we will just convert into P implies Q representation. Okay. So whatever the compound sentence is there, that we need to simplify to single sentences, and for each sentence we need to assign one proposition. Okay. And later we need to represent that mathematically, right? And for that, you have to apply. You need to check whether it is valid or not. And how will you check whether it is valid or not? If it falls into any of the rule. Okay. See, actually, there are for your syllabus there are 6 rules of inferences. But I suggest you just remember the 5 rules. Okay, that is sufficient. The 6th rule is not required because you can solve the problems just with the 5 rules. Fine. Okay. So based on whatever I have told, so when you once you convert that into the mathematical representation form, if it falls into any of the 5 rules, then it is a valid argument. Otherwise, it is not valid. Okay. So either he can give in the form of sentences or he can give the mathematical representation directly. Okay. So he can use any one technique. He can give any one question. Okay, depending on he can give any one question. Okay. Okay. So first, what I will do is I will just give you an idea about the 5 rules of inferences. Before I tell you that, first I will tell you about the symbols. Okay, what is the symbol, students? I'm just asking you a question. What is the meaning of the symbol? What is the meaning of that symbol? Man? Okay, students, is the board clearly visible for you now? Now? Okay. So I have just written a symbol on the board. So you just tell me, what is the meaning of that symbol? If and only if. Okay, biconjunction. See, actually, this is biconditional. It's not biconjunction, it's biconditional. Okay, this is the symbol for biconditional, but the one that I have written is, this is logical equivalence. Actually, in most of the problems that I have solved, instead of using this symbol, I have used 3 lines. Both are same. Okay, so both are same. So the meaning of that is logical equivalence. Okay, and now students, one thing is, if I have to check whether 2 compound propositions are logically equivalent or not, what I will do, I will find the, yes, one way is you can use the laws of logic and you can prove LHS is equal to RHS. The other way is you will write the truth table, right? And you will find the truth values. If all the truth values of the LHS is same as the RHS, then you will conclude that LHS is logically equivalent to RHS, right? So in case of the logical equivalent, what will happen is complete every truth value that you get in the LHS will be same as the RHS. Okay. Okay, fine. And what is this symbol? What is this symbol? What is the meaning of this symbol? Implication, exactly. So the meaning of the symbol is conditional, right? And for the conditional, I have already given you the rule. It will be false in only one case. That is, the first one is true and the second one is false. Okay. So now you have an idea about all the symbols. So now I will introduce one more symbol for you. Okay. this one. And what is the meaning of this? See, actually here I have used arrow at the right side, not at the left side. Okay, only one arrow I have used. And the meaning of this is necessary and sufficient condition. Necessary and sufficient condition. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? I will tell you in two ways. Okay, so one simple way is when you find the truth values. Okay, so when you find the truth values, so between the LHS and RHS, if each part of the LHS is true, then only you have to worry about RHS. Okay, so what is that exactly? I will give one simple example for you. Okay, so I will tell that P implies Q ampersand Q implies R is necessary and sufficient for me to tell that P implies R is true. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? I will just write the truth table for that immediately. You'll understand. Okay, so since you have three propositions here, so in order to check all the truth values, all the possible values, you have to take 8 combinations. So quickly I will write that. Okay, 4 ones. I have to write one more. Okay, now. Okay, R10, 10, 10, 10. Okay, so you already know the rule for the conditionals. P implies Q, Q implies R, and P implies R. Okay, so quickly I'll just write that. So between P and Q, 1, 1, 0, 0, and 4 ones you will get, and Q implies R, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Okay, and P implies R, what I will get? 1, 0, 1, 0, 4 ones. See, actually, so now if you observe, students, actually this is the necessary and sufficient condition, right? So before this necessary and sufficient condition, actually you have two premises. Okay, so how can you bifurcate the premises? Actually, so this conditional, okay, this conditional whatever you have, so you just have to take that as a bifurcation. Okay, so prior to this condition, prior to this conjunction, not conditional, prior to this conjunction, you have one part that is P implies Q, and after that you have one more part that is Q implies R. Whenever P implies Q and Q implies R is true, then P implies R should be true. Fine. So that is the meaning of necessary and sufficient condition. Okay, so which are those cases? In the first row we have P implies Q is true and Q implies R is true. If these two are true, the result has to be true. Yes, that condition is satisfied. Okay, whereas in the second row we have P implies Q is true but Q implies R is not true. We need not to worry about this. That is called as a don't care condition. Okay, so next the same thing goes even with the third and the fourth one. So we have P implies Q is R. For that the result we don't worry. Okay, so when you see the fifth one, we have P implies Q is true and Q implies R is true. So if these two are true, then the result has to be true and it is satisfied. And the same thing goes even with the seventh and the eighth row. Okay, so in simple words, what I can conclude is, in case of the necessary and sufficient condition, you need to think about the RHS only when the subparts of the LHS is true. Okay, I think you have got some idea. I'm sure that you have not completely understood, but still that is the meaning of necessary and sufficient condition. If we solve more problems on that, you will understand better. Okay, so this is one way of teaching for you with respect to the truth tables. Okay, so okay, that is one thing. Next, one more thing I'll tell you. Okay, I'll give one example for you for necessary and sufficient condition. Okay. Okay, let us take one example. Okay, if actually even in the meetings, okay, even in the meeting morning they were discussing. So will the classes will be commenced on commenced from November? Okay, so for that question, some of the faculties they were answering like, if the students are willing and if the parents are willing, then the classes might start from November. I'll repeat. Okay, so if the students are willing to come to class and if the parents are willing to send their students, then it is necessary and sufficient for me to tell that the classes will be commenced from November. Okay, so in this case, actually there are three parts. Okay, so the classes will be commenced from the November. That is one part. And the truthness of this, it depends upon the subparts. There are two subparts and both are important, not one, right? So the students must be willing. Next, and also the parents must be willing. If any of these condition fails, assume that this is the argument that is made by me. My argument is if students are willing and if parents are willing, then the classes will start. Okay. And in order to check the truthness of my argument, so you need to check both the parts. Okay. So if the students are willing and also parents are willing, if the classes is not commencing, then you have to come and ask, oh, so Suman sir, whatever you have told is wrong. Then you can argue. Otherwise, whatever the argument that I have made is valid only. If the students are not willing, so if the students are not willing, whether the college is commenced or not commenced, so it doesn't affect my argument. Have you got some idea, students? Okay, so whatever the things that I'm discussing about necessary and sufficient, at least some idea have you got, right? Okay, so based on this, okay, so based on whatever the discussions we had now, because this directly if I go to the problems, okay, so directly if I go to the problems I can solve, but the thing is if I do that, so actual meaning of that you can't understand. That is the meaning, that is the reason why I'm giving all this background. Okay, so whatever the thing that I have told with respect to the argument, okay, in the argument, whatever the example that I have given, that had only two premises, right? The students are willing to come to the college and also parents are willing to send the students to the college. There we had only two premises. Two premises in the sense it's prior to the conclusion, right? So in that way, actually, for an argument, we can have n number of premises. I can tell like, yes, students must agree, parents must agree, and also government should agree, and also college management should agree. Like this, I can put n premises. Okay, it's my wish. Okay, so like this, for any of the argument, you can have n number of premises, and whatever the final conclusion I'll tell, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, then whatever I tell, that will be the final conclusion, right? So now this entire thing is called as an argument. Fine. So whether this argument is valid or not, so for that I will use the rules of inferences. What is that rules of inferences? Next I will tell you. And as I have already told, these are called as premises. Okay, and this is called as conclusion. And students actually in the exam, whenever they give the question like this, how you have to read? You have to read this like if P1 is true and not or and, because everything should be everything is true. Okay, so these are some kind of mutually exclusive events, not mutually independent. Okay, so P1 should be true and P2 should be true and P3 should be true and so on, and Pn should be true, then Q is true. Okay, so when you are reading this, you have to read like this: P1 ampersand P2 ampersand P3 and so on ampersand of Pn. This is necessary and sufficient for me to tell that Q is true. Okay, so this is how you represent mathematically, right? Okay, so now one final thing I have to tell you. So whatever the argument that I give, okay, so whether it is a valid argument or not, that I can, so he will ask in the exam to check the validity of an argument using the rules of inference. Okay, so if he tells that, you have to only use the rules of inference to check the validity of an argument. Okay, so how many rules we have? As I told, in some textbooks they will give 6 rules, in some textbooks they have given 5 rules. I suggest 5 rules are sufficient. Okay, any problem easily you can solve just by using the 5 rules of inference. So out of which the first rule is conjunctive amplification. I will just mention all the rules now. Okay. Okay, fine. So the first rule is conjunctive simplification, not amplification. Conjunctive simplification. Okay, so this rule tells that before I tell you that rule, I think you already know the rules about the basic logical connectives, right? Like and, or, implication, biconditional, negation. I have given the rules. Okay, you know the truth tables and you know when it will be true and when it will be false, right? So now what I will tell is, in the premises part, I will tell that P ampersand of Q is true. See, what I have told is P ampersand of Q. Yes, ma'am? Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Just a minute. కానీ దీన్ని దొబ్బితే Okay, is it sufficient, students? Now is it clearly visible? Okay, what I was telling, see actually you only tell me. Okay, so what I have told is in the premises I have told you P ampersand of Q is true. Okay, so what is the conclusion? Can you tell me what will be the value of P and Q here? Students, my question is, I have given you P ampersand of Q is true. So now I am asking you the values of P and Q. Tell me. Exactly. They are true, right? So it's very simple rule. Okay, this conjunctive simplification tells that whenever I know P ampersand of Q is true, their individual propositions, that is P and Q, will also be true. Okay, that is a very simple rule, right? So this rule is called as conjunctive simplification. So next we have one more rule, that is disjunctive amplification. This rule tells that, so I have given some proposition P is true. Okay, so now I will tell that P or any proposition, P or Z or P or Q, P or L, irrespective of the value of Z, Q and L, if you know that P is true, if you perform the disjunction proposition with any proposition, the result will be true only. Will you agree for this? Students, I'm just asking you, will you agree for that? Because the disjunction rule tells that, it will be true even if a single proposition is true. So based on this rule, I can clearly tell that if in case P is true, then P or Q is also true. Okay. See, actually, just like in the mathematical logic, I have told you, along with the rule, you have to remember the name of the rule, because in the problem when you are solving, so whenever you go to the next stage, which rule you have applied, that you have to mention. Fine. So two rules are very simple, right? So I'll mention one more rule here. That is rule of syllogism, very important. So this rule of syllogism tells that if in case I know that P implies Q is true and Q implies R is true, then P implies of R is also true. If you ask me the proof for this, just now we have solved one problem, right? That is P implies Q, ampersand of Q implies R is necessary and sufficient condition for P implies R. Okay, so there we have seen the truth values also. Okay, so in simple words, the rule of syllogism tells that if P implies Q is true and if Q implies R is true, then P implies R will also be true. Okay, so one example is I'll tell that Anil is my friend. Okay, Anil will tell that Srinidhi is my friend, and also now I can tell that P implies R, that is I'm the friend of Srinidhi also. Okay. P implies Q, Q implies R. Okay. Okay, so the meaning of this is, as I have already told you, you can write this as P ampersand of Q is necessary and sufficient for to tell that P is true. Okay, so similarly, P, if it is true, it is necessary and sufficient for me to tell that P or Q is true. So similarly, if P implies Q is true and Q implies of R is true, this is necessary and sufficient for me to tell that P implies of R is true. Okay, so these three rules are very simple, easily you would have understood. So now I will go to the fourth rule. It's very important. That is Modus-Pon's rule. Okay, so what is this Modus-Pon's rule? Okay, so now I will tell you that. Okay, so first assume that I have a proposition P implies Q. Okay, in this proposition, let me assume P is true. So now, what is the conclusion for this? Students, I have given two propositions here. So the two parts here, two premises. The first premise tells that P implies of Q is true. See, I only have given that P implies Q is true. See, whatever the proposition that comes above this horizontal line, I'll repeat, whatever the propositions that I write above this horizontal line, those things you need to consider as true only. Okay, so they are the premises and the premises are true, using which you need to check whether the conclusion is true or not. Okay, so first thing what I have given is P implies of Q is true, and I have given P is true. So now I'm just asking you, if P implies Q is true and Q is true, what will be the value of Q? I'm asking you the question, what will be the value of Q? Will everyone agree with this one? Yes, exactly. Because if P implies of Q is true, if P is true, then this will be true, right? True implies of what will give you true? If I had false here, the result would have been false, but that is not happening. The result is true. Since the result is true, this cannot be false, rather it has to be true. Correct, right? So this rule, this Modus-Pon's rule tells that whenever you have P implies of Q is true and P is true, you can conclude that Q is also true. Okay. So next you have one more rule, that is modus tollens. Okay. What this modus tollens rule tells that, so in the same way we have a premise called P implies Q is true, and I have one more premise which will tell that negation of Q is true. Okay, fine. So now tell me, what is the value of P? What is the value of P? Just think and tell me. I have given P implies Q is true and negation of Q is true. So now what is the value of P? Exactly. Chandrakant, Murthy, Ankita, everyone. So they are telling that it will be false. It's very simple, right? Because if P implies of Q is true, and if negation of Q is true, what is the value of Q? It will be false. Okay. If the value of P would have been true, then the result would have been false. But that is not happening. The result is actually true. Since the result is true, this P cannot be true. If P is not true, then what is true? If P is not true, then what is true? Its negation is true. In other words, P is false. Okay, but in the conclusion, I'm just talking about which proposition is true. So I'll just write that negation of P is true. Okay, so it's very simple. Students, actually, now you have got an idea about all the 5 rules, but usually the students will get confused with respect to the modus ponens and modus tollens rule. Okay, but I'll give you one small hint not to get confused. That is, whenever in a conditional, okay, so this P, in this P plus Q, you already know that this P, it will deal with the if part, right? And this Q, it will deal with the then part, right? Because you will use the conditional whenever you see the words if then, right? So and the sentence, whichever the sentence that is there with the, that is associated with the if, okay, that is P, and whichever the sentence that is associated with then, that is Q. Okay, so a proposition, a rule which will deal with if part is called as modus ponens. A rule which will deal with then part is called as modus tollens. Actually, the thing is, usually the students will get confused which rule to apply. Okay, modus ponens or modus tollens. If you get confused, as I have told you, whenever you are dealing with the if part, that is modus ponens. If you are dealing with then part, that is modus tollens. Okay, so quickly I suggest you to copy all these 5 rules. Okay, so okay, the thing is, I have given the rules, right, laws of logic, and I told you to just make a note of everything in the last page of the sheet. Okay, so there, along with the 9 or 10 rules, and also one important formula I have given you, if you remember, that is P implies Q is equal to negation of P or Q, right? And also I have told you with the relation between a conditional and the contrapositive. If you remember, I have when I taught you the converse, inverse, and contrapositive, I have written the truth table, and I have told you this P implies Q. This conditional will be always same as its contrapositive. What is the contrapositive of this? Negation of Q implies negation of P. Okay. So along with those laws and formulas, these five rules of inference, you just have to copy. Okay. So I'll give you 5 minutes. So please copy it. And students, actually, regarding the syllabus completion, before your first internals, actually, I think we'll get 3 Tuesdays, I think. So we'll get 3 more Tuesdays. Completion of the module 1, so I require 2 more classes. Okay, so because after this, so maybe even if I have some module 1, it will be completed. Yeah, actually the thing is, after this, whatever the remaining problems is there, I can just finish it in half an hour in the next class. Okay, so after that you will be having in the next part there are only 2 important topics. Okay, one is with respect to the open statements. So we will be not seeing the proposition, we will be seeing the open statements. I told you in the beginning class, right? So a proposition is a statement which can be told as either true or false. If we cannot categorize it as true or false, so those kind of statements are called as open statements. Okay, so how to deal with the open statements, that is a next chapter topic. Okay, so for that I need some 1.5 hours, and then we'll be solving the problems related to direct and indirect method. Okay, so as I have told you, module 1 is little bit of small, we have less topics and easily we can solve. But with regard to the module 3, before the first internals, I think we will be able to complete only the relations. Functions won't be possible to complete. Okay, and in the assignment, I think if any of the questions related to functions have been given, what I will do is we will change that question. And what we are thinking, like 1 week before the internals, that is on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we will keep only for solving the assignment questions. Okay. So on Tuesday we will solve 6 questions. On Wednesday we will solve six questions. Okay. So if you have not written any assignment, actually on the same day, actually you can see and copy. If you write it now only, it's well and good. Okay. Am I audible, students? I was talking about the assignments. Have you got my point? Okay, what I was telling is the assignment 1 questions I will solve 1 week before. Okay, so 1 week before on Tuesday and Wednesday I will solve all the assignment problems. And what I was telling is module 1 I could able to I can complete, but module 3, since it is very vast, we cannot complete that. Okay, so only we can finish till relations. Functions part, so let us keep it for the second internals. And regarding the syllabus completion, please don't worry, because this time the total number of classes, when we have seen the lesson plan, it was like around 82 to 83 classes. Okay, usually in the normal times we used to have only at most 60 or 55 classes something, but this time we have so many classes. So regarding the syllabus completion, you need not to worry. Fine. So for the first internals, yes, actually the last working day they have already extended also. So anyhow, okay, so for the first internals, actually we have told module 1 and module 3, but now stick on to module 1 and first chapter of the module 3, that is only relations, not functions. Fine. So shall we continue with the problems? ಇದೆಯಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಸರ್ ಡಾರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಬರೆಯೋದು ಯಾವ್ದನ್ನ Okay, so now I'll start with the simple problems. As I have told you, there are two ways in which they can ask the questions. First thing is they'll give the sentences for which you need to convert it into proposition form and you have to check whether it is valid or not. Or he can give directly the propositions. Okay, so let us see the first method. Okay, so I'll give one simple sentence. So you need to check whether it is valid or not. And if it is valid, you have to tell me according to which rule. Okay, so the question is, there are two premises which tells if Sachin hits a century, then he will get a free car. So that is the first premise. The second one is Sachin hits a century. Okay, and the conclusion is Sachin gets a free car. Sachin gets a free car. Okay, so only one problem I'll just tell you. See, whatever the statement that he has given, compound statement, first you have to simplify that. As I have told you already earlier, see, actually finding the answer here is very easy. But if you are in a hurry and if you focus only on telling the answer, you won't get full marks. Okay, so the first step is easily you can tell it is valid, and according to modus Pon's rule, because this is dealing with the first part, easily you can tell according to the modus Pon's it is valid. But if you do like that, you won't get full marks. What you need to do is, first of all, whatever the compound sentences you have, you need to simplify that. Okay, so just split each and every sentence. Sachin hits a century. Sachin hits a century. That is one sentence, right? Sachin gets a free car. Sachin gets a free car. This is the second sentence. Is there any other sentence other than this? That's all, right? So again, it is repeated. So we have only two sentences. So to cover this, to represent that in the form of propositions, we need only two. Okay. So I will just assign the first sentence to the proposition P and the second sentence to the proposition Q. Okay. So now using which I will just try to represent this mathematically. So since you have if then, you have to use conditional. You already know. If you have and, you have to use conjunction. If you have or, you have to use disjunction. Those basic rules I think you know, right? So now Sachin hits a century, that is P. He gets a free car is Q. And since you have if then, you have to use the conditional. Okay. And Sachin hits a century, again it is P. Now one horizontal line. And what is the conclusion? Sachin gets a free car. Sachin getting the free car is Q. So now after converting this into mathematical representation, now you need to check whether it is valid or not. As I have already told you, don't use your common sense or don't use don't think and tell. Just what you need to do is, if it falls into any of the 5 rules of inferences, then it is valid. Otherwise, it is not valid. Okay. So just you have to keep in mind about those 5 rules, and you already know out of the 5 rules, conjunction and disjunctive amplification, it is with respect to conjunction and disjunction. Okay. With respect to conditional, I have given only 3 rules. One is the rule of syllogism, which tells P implies Q is true, Q implies R is true, then P implies R is true, right? And modus Pon's, I told you, it will deal with the if part. Modus tollens, it will deal with the then part. Okay. So now easily we can tell that this argument is valid. And according to which rule? Students, I'm just asking you, according to which rule it is valid? Yes. So Navya, it's modus Pon's rule. Yes, exactly. So according to the modus Pon's rule, this argument is valid. So in the exam, the examiner, he will check whether you have assigned the sentences to the proposition correctly for that 1 mark, whether the mathematical representation you have written correctly or not, another 1 mark, whether you have told valid or not, 1 more mark, and according to which rule, another mark. Okay, so like that the split up will be there. Even if you miss a single thing, you won't get complete marks. Fine. So I think you have understood. Any doubts here, students? I have taken one simple problem. So now I think you got an idea how to solve these kind of problems, right? Any doubt in the first problem, students? If you are okay with this, I will go further. Students, have you understood? Okay, very good. So now I will just keep asking you, you should only answer. You should only tell whether it is valid or not. And if it is valid, according to which rule, you should only answer. Okay. So similar question I'll just take. Sachin hits a century, he gets a free car. Sachin does not get a free car. Sachin does not get a free car. The first premise is same. Second premise I have changed. And the conclusion also I'll change. Sachin has not hit a century. Sachin has not hit a century. Okay, so again in this one we have the same simple sentences, same proposition. So now I want you to tell whether it is valid or not. If it is valid, according to which rule, you have to put in the comment section. I'll give you 2 minutes time. Please answer. ಹೊಸ systems problem ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ? Okay, so I think most of you have already answered. Modus tollens, yes, exactly. See, actually the thing is, first if I convert this into the proposition form, it will be like P implies Q, and Sachin does not get a free car. If he gets a free car, then it is Q. If he does not get, then it is negation of Q, right? And the conclusion is Sachin has not hit a century, right? And as I have already told you, in the premises, if it deals with the second part of the conditional, right? So that is called as modus tollens rule. Or I'll just tell you, if you use the common sense, if negation of Q is true, Q is false. We already know that P implies Q is true. Then P, it cannot be true. If it is not true, then what is true? Its negation is true, right? So that is the conclusion. So you have to tell it is valid according to which rule? Modus tollens. Okay. So again, I'll just change the question now. If Sachin hits a century, he gets a free car. Sachin gets a free car. So one last problem of this type. Sachin, the second premise is Sachin gets a free car. And the conclusion is Sachin has hit a century. Okay, so if the board is not visible for you properly, I'll just read out the question here. The first premise is if Sachin hits a century, then he gets a free car. And the second one is Sachin has got a free car. Okay, and the conclusion is Sachin has hit the century. So now you need to tell whether it is valid or not, and if it is valid, according to which rule. Already some answers are there. I don't know whether you are answering for the second one or this problem. So now I'm just asking you, tell me whether it is valid or not. Okay, so I think your answer is valid. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll just write this, give the mathematical representation for this. Later, you just tell me whether it is valid or not. Okay, the first one, as usual, P implies Q. And the second one is Sachin gets a free car. That is Q. Okay, so then you would have hit a century, that is P. So now look at this and tell me whether it is valid or not. I told you if it falls into any of the 5 rules of inference, then only it is valid. Otherwise, it's not valid. Okay. Okay. Exactly. Okay, most of you are answering it's invalid. Yeah, it's true. Because the thing is, forget about the rules of inference. Okay, use the common sense. When you use the common sense, he's telling that P implies Q is true. Fine. and he is also telling that Q is true. Okay, if Q is true, is it necessary and sufficient for me to tell that P implies Q is also true? No, because the thing is, if you keep the value of P as true, then also the result will be true. Or if you keep the value of P is false, also the result will be true. Okay, so this is not necessary and sufficient for me to tell that whether the P is true or not. So with this, what I can conclude is the given argument is not valid. You have to write in the exam, it's not valid. That's all. Correct, right? So with this premises, that is P implies Q is true and Q is true, I cannot conclude whether P is true or not. Correct, right? So I think now you got a clear idea about what is this valid and invalid arguments. Okay, so now if you have understood this, I'll give a little bit different problem. Okay, so I'll just give you an exam question. So this question they have asked in the exam. This is one of the repeated question. Let me see how many of you will solve this. Okay, so the question goes like this. See, actually, one more thing I'll tell you. In the previous problems, whatever we have seen, actually, easily in a single step after converting into mathematical representation, since it does not fall into any of the 5 rules of inferences, you are telling that it is valid or it is not valid, or if it falls, you will tell that it is valid. Okay, but every time it won't be like that. Okay, so sometimes whatever the after mathematical conversion, whatever the propositions we get, just like that, we cannot tell if it falls into any of the rules of inference or not. In that case, what you need to do is you have to simplify. And now, how will you simplify? Again, whatever the problems that we have solved using the laws of logic, right? So you have to take in a similar way. But the thing is, each and every premise when you are reading, you have to separate that with conjunction. Like for example, if I tell P implies Q is true, Q implies R is true, and P implies of R is true. When you have to prove this kind of problem, okay, so what you need to do is you have to just read in this way: P implies Q is true, ampersand Q implies R is true. Next, you have to simplify this. Why you can simplify it using the laws of logic, and then you can solve. Okay, so you have to separate each and every premise with conjunction. That is very important, right? Okay, so now I'll give you one problem. Let me see how many of you will solve this. If I study, then I will not fail in the exam. The first premise is, if I study, then I will not fail in exam. That is the first premise. And the second premise is, if I don't watch TV in the evening, if I don't watch TV in the evening, then I will study. Then I will study. And we have the third premise, which tells that I failed in the exam. I failed in the exam. And the conclusion is, therefore, I must have watched TV in the evening. I must have watched TV in the evening. Okay, so this is one of the exam problem. So you just have to solve this. While solving, I am telling you. So you just have to first clearly check how many sentences are there. So depending on that, you have to use propositions. You have to represent that mathematically, and you need to simplify that, and you need to check whether you are getting the conclusion or not. If you are getting the conclusion, then next again, if it falls into any of the 5 rules of inference, then it is valid. Otherwise, it is not valid. Okay. So you have to check and tell me whether it is valid or not. And if it is valid, which are all the set of rules that you have applied that you need to tell me, along with the laws of logic. If you have used, you have to tell me. Okay. So I'll give you 5 minutes time. And one more thing, students. So after this problem, so ma'am will give some assignment questions. Okay, some practice problems which you need to solve. Okay, so you just solve this and put the answer in the comment section. Fine. So I'll take leave today. I have some work. Fine. So next, Kirtika ma'am, she will continue. Okay. I want everyone to solve and put the answer. Yeah, and also ma'am will take attendance now. Fine. So thank you, students. So whatever the topics that we have discussed today, have you understood it clearly? Just you have to remember the 5 rules of inferences. I think it's very easy for you, right? So next you have to solve the problems. So today I have discussed only basic problems, right? So in the next class we will be solving more problems on this. After that we will also start with the open statements, right? Okay, so now ma'am will take the attendance and then she'll give some practice problems. Fine. Okay. Thank you, students. Actually, record అవ్వలేదు.